Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, over me hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, ooh, talking about culture, hey, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Panelist.
And I am Panelist. A pleasant welcome to Focus on Liberia. This Friday night debate. Please mute yourself if you're done speaking, please. Again, this is Focus on Liberia. I'm Panelist hosting. This is Friday night debate. Friday night debate is a show dedicated to debating serious issues concerning our nation, Liberia. The debaters are seated. They are ready. The focus on the debate is trying to assess who or what works in Liberia, who or what is Liberia's best among the rest. We will be looking at institutions and we'll be looking at individuals, and the focus not only going to be on political leaders, we're going to be looking at anything that is of significance to Liberia. My name is Panelist, and I'm moderating in this debate. We are hoping to have Mr. Dennis Bwaku-Kenguja and any other debaters out there. Please come, let us debate. Seated and ready to go is no one else but this gentleman who drinks from a Sacomoran cup from the Sunshine State of Florida, Jerome Gibman, who just from Grand Bassa County, Liberia. He's fresh, he ate organic, and he's ready to roll. Hey, how's your boy Trump doing?
We are doing very well, but today we had a bad day in the White House. I didn't like what I saw, but so far so good. I like that we brought a chainsaw to the government. Our goal is to cut $2 trillion out of this budget. Hopefully, Liberians can do the same thing, get a chainsaw and cut down the salaries of the president, the vice president, the Speaker of the House, the temp, and the legislative body. Don't forget the judiciary. They make a lot of money too. So between the three branches of government, if we can cut everything 50%, we won't worry about USAID $51 billion. Thank you very much.
It's good to have you. Maybe the Liberian government should borrow that saw, but you're talking about $2 trillion cut in a single budget. Yeah. No, that is not doable, but we'll leave it there. Mr. Boaka Dukle is joining us from Canada. How you doing, sir? And welcome to Friday Night Debate. Are you ready? Unmute, sir. Unmute.
I'm well. Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to the debate.
All right. Also seated and ready is our Sustainable Development Coach, no one else but Pastor S.T. Salif. He's always ready to debate the issue with passion. It's good to have you, brother. Welcome. How you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Sear. It's good to be here, and I'm so glad to connect with our brother, Mr. Gibman. Again, I'm sure he's going to give us some perspective. I mean, he's just from there, so he can give us some fresh perspective on what's going on there. And I'm glad to be here with all the other panelists. And again, as I always say, everywhere you're joining us, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, whichever social media platform you're joining us from, welcome to the debate, and let us come with an open mind to discuss the issues affecting our country for the betterment of Liberia. Thank you for having me in here.
Thank you. Also here and ready for the debate is Dr. George Williams. He is a social and political commentator and an educator as well. Dad, as we will say, welcome. How you doing? It's Friday Night Debate.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for the invite. Happy to be here. Happy to be part of the conversation regarding Liberia, our common patrimony. You know, every conversation adds up to the voices that's needed to help move our country forward. So it's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's always good to have you. And he is a young and bright mind, Evan Morris. We share the same state of Minnesota. And he's always fired up about Friday Night Debate. It's good to have you, young brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Mr. Sear. It's a pleasure to be on the platform with you and the other distinguished gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
I know we are yet to debate Liberia, but what you saw in the warehouse today, I'm sure you were disturbed by that.
I'm ashamed, man. I'm ashamed. And people who voted for this guy thinking he would be any different than what he proven himself to be before is an embarrassment to this country. It's just an embarrassment, man.
Well, he is focused on Liberia political analyst, an independent mind who talks it as he sees it. My good friend and comrade, Mohammed Sharif, is joining us from I wanted to say strange country, from a different country. Comrade, you look ready there, my man. Welcome to Friday Night Debate. How you doing?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Thank you, Anthony. Very well. I'm happy to be here.
I can't hold my peace but to ask you about what we witnessed today at the Oval Office. Any comment?
Well, I mean, it's something that I expected. It's not unexpected, and more of this is to come. And I think the worst is yet to come.
Yep. Isn't that obvious? Well, gentlemen, let us get to the debate, and to our audience, we want to welcome you as well. Do us that favor, share the broadcast with somebody. Focus on Liberia is about educating, elevating, and promoting all things Liberia. Let us elevate the national debate. In Liberia, people are afraid to debate the issue. So here at Focus on Liberia, we are cultivating the culture of debating serious issues about our country. For when we do, let someone say, our mouths are not guns. Let us discuss so that we can find a solution. That is our contribution to the national disco. Well, we are focusing on who or what works best in Liberia, or better, or who or what is Liberia's best among the rest, institutions and individuals. So we have some serious questions, and we're going to be pushing the debaters to give us meat and not bones, because I don't eat bones. I am a lion and I'm a hunter. I'm a fisherman. I like meat. Question number one: which institution in Liberia do we all agree is effective and that we respect? Is there any institution in our country? But before that question, let me get all of you opening statement. What we're trying to do today is to look at our institution and individuals who lead our institution, or individuals who represent all of us. in position of consequence in the nation Liberia. From the overview of it all, what is your assessment? And I'll start with you, Comrade Mohammed Shari. What is your assessment of our institution that are charged with the responsibility to serve us and the individuals occupying those institutions in Liberia? Do you think they're doing well? Do you think they're doing better? Do you think they are disappointing us? What is your general assessment?
In general, our institutions are not doing better. The same thing has happened over and over. So from administration to administration, these institutions have failed the Liberian people. And so the fact that we're here trying to analyze the performance of those institutions should be a positive way that the government should look at this. The Liberians should look at this because it is through these institutions that society functions, but these institutions have not serviced the Liberian people well. Over time, it has always been the same. So despite changes in leadership, the institutions are still underperforming. One of the things that's common in these institutions is the large pile of money that's invested in these institutions to run the state. And, there's much to be desired. And so right off the bat, I would, having said that, I would say one of the institutions that have serviced us well in the last couple of years is the National Elections Commission. I believe that the National Elections Commission for the conduct of the past election show itself to be independent, show itself to be mature. And so that's an institution that you want to look out for, like in the coming election. If they continue to be independent this way, then we entertain no fear that the election, for example, is going to be rigged. So when you're talking about Liberia, and I can only go to one institution right away, then that's a problem among a whole host of institutions. At the national health, I think the health, national health.
And Comrade, we'll get to the specifics. I just wanted to get your general, overview or assessment of our institutions and representatives, irrespective of where they represent us. All right. So I think you did that very brilliantly. Let me get to my ambassador brother here, Mr. Jerry Goodman. What is your overall assessment of our institution that we rely on to provide services and serve our people to make our society functional? Are they up to the task or not?
Well, let's look at the government in its totality. Let's look at. I'll start with the judicial branch of the country. If anybody tells you that the judiciary is doing very well, they might be lying to you, because I stay at the embassy, as I told you, and one of the conversation, one of the concerns there is the land issue in the country. Most people there are concerned that most people are talking about war in other areas, but if there's going to be any major conflict, the thing is going to come from the land issue that is unsettled. It's a major issue that is haunting the international community. It's number one on their list. And that is predicated on our judicial system, the failure of our judicial system to be judicious, as evidenced by the many blunders they have made from the ruling, the ultra virus and all that other stuff, virus and all that stuff, with all the clarity and being upfront. These are things that we are talking about. If the population does not feel that they can go to the judicial for redress, it's a recipe for chaos. Now let's get to the executive. I don't have to say much about the executive. It has been non-functional. So that's an F and an F. Let's go down to the legislature. That is a double F. So overall, Liberia is not doing well, but like you say, when we get down to the individual, there are few people that are doing well on their own, but it's not enough. It's like if you score 40 on an exam, for you to make 100 on another exam, it's almost impossible to say you're going to get a passing grade. So one individual cannot lift the executive, one individual cannot lift the judiciary, one individual cannot lift the legislature. So on my overall, I think I'm being very, very, very realistic. We are not doing well as of yet.
Dr. Williams, your general assessment of our institutions and representatives.
Well, I joined the previous speakers in a general assessment of government as a unit. Um, what we see unfolding in the country, I have seen unfold over the last year at least, has been dismal performance at all levels. Leadership has been found wanting in so many areas, whether it's in the judiciary, the legislature, or the executive, even more. Um, so much so that society is unable to point to any one major success that around which the population is able to gravitate around. I think for the last 2 years, the only celebration our people have had was the election of Joseph, President Blackard and the Elections Commission. So, I want to hail Sharif for pointing that out. We'll go into the specifics, but uh, I believe since the 23rd of 2023, and those results were announced, we have not had much to celebrate about. And that speaks volume in terms of what the public feels about the performance of government and where this government is going as well. So whether it's at the legislature, and we'll come back to that in more specific terms, but those three branches have failed miserably. And yes, they still have time to correct this situation, but as it stands, at this point of the assessment, they've underperformed. They've underperformed much, much lower than the public expected.
Pastor Salih, your general assessment of our institutions and representatives.
Well, I mean, without trying to be seen as maybe trying to brag, I mean, I'm a student of. I have a diploma in electrical technology, and I did my bachelor in operations management, where we studied different management pures, project management, and all of that. And when you go back to after World War II, American auto industry was failing because they just didn't know what to do. How did they rescue the American auto industry? They had to go to Japan. And it was from Japan they learned lean production. And it was through lean production we were able to lift up the American auto industry. And that is learning the 5S, the Six Sigma, and total quality management, total quality control, trying to detect defect before you get to the end of the production line, because they were just wasting resources. They would just churn off cars, and it would get all the way to the end of the production line before they discover, oh, there's defect, and then hundreds of thousands of cars have to go back or have to be recalled. But Japan set up a system that you can detect defect any aspect of the line and shut down the entire line. So when it comes to assessing Liberia, let me borrow from my friend and brother Gimmon. Your passing grade when you're in school, because you don't do one subject in school, so your passing grade is a cumulative of all your grades and the average of that. So I could make 100 in this course, but if I get F in this one, F in that one, a C in this one, the average of that I won't be able to pass at the end of the day. So to assess the failures and success of the government based on individual department, again, it will be difficult. We can do that, but that's not going to lead to any passing grade. The way we do business in Liberia, that's why we have to be able to sit down and do an introspect, do a retrospect, and see where things went wrong. As a non-governmental professional too that I did, at the end of every successful project, we sit down in the room and we come together and say, hey, from this project, what went wrong, what went right, what can we correct, looking forward, looking backwards. But it looks like Liberia, year after year, it's the same thing, one administration to the other administration. And this Bouaka administration, the reason they will be graded very harshly is because the platform they came under, they came to rescue. When you come under that platform that, hey, the country is ailing and we got to do everything to rescue, only to come there and go into coma yourself, and now you need the rescuer needs rescuing, then that is emblematic. And like you said, we will get into the nitty gritty of it, but overall performance of this government is a failure. I mean, the government is failing and has failed very woefully, but I can't wait for us to get into the nitty gritty of, the discussion for tonight.
Mr. Tukle, your general assessment of our institutions and representatives.
Thank you, Anthony. It really doesn't take. There's a noise in the background there. Yeah, it doesn't really take much to evaluate our institution, and since the end of the cessation of the hostility and the downing of the new republic, and with all what has transpired since then to date, there's really not much you can point to and say, here is what has improved, here is where we are doing well, and here is where we need to improve, etc. And I'm saying that on an individual institution, and collectively, when you look at them all, they're all dismal in what they are doing and what they have done. And Anthony, these institutions, usually the individual who runs them is the reflection of those individuals. And so cumulatively, when you look at all our institutions, they have just been staffed by people who primary objectives is to line up their pockets. And so the benefits of the Liberian people is never paramount, is never considered as an objective to be achieved. And so I can see any institutions other than, like Brother Sharif says, the National Election Commission. And the only reason for that, because this National Election Commission has become the tool, the vehicle through which we can ask for external assistance through money, technical assistance, etc., to show to the world that we are doing something that is admirable. We're doing something that is desired, which is the so-called democracy. And even at that, it's only because we are at a point in our history where I don't think any serious politician has any appetite now for any violence or hostility. And so the only way he or she can sort of come to the playing ground is to present themselves as people who want democracy. But Anthony, we are talking about a nation that is almost going to be 200 years old very soon. And yet we are talking about institutions that's supposed to be a no-brainer, actually. But unfortunately, as we have seen, the functioning of these institutions supposed to be reflected in the lives of the people they serve, the Liberian people. You go down on Broad Street, go down Center Street, go down to West Point, and talk to ordinary Liberians. How do they feel? And I bet you, even though I haven't done a scientific polling, but I can tell you here, speculatively speaking, that no one will tell you that his or her life has been improved by any program, by anything this successive government have done for Liberia. So there's no functioning institution in Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Evan Morris.
All right, thank you, Mr. CA. I think our agencies are operating at a curve in Liberia. None of them is functioning at this optimal level, but there are some that are doing relatively well, and some that's doing abysmally, poorly. The first one I think about is the National Fishery Agency, if I'm getting that nomenclature right. I think Emma Glasgow has done a good enough job that she's attracted international, attention. from places like Senegal and the EU, the UAE. And I think even today there's pictures on Facebook that they built a new headquarters, from some of the revenue that they generated. That was an agency that was almost dead a few years ago. So I think she's done a good enough job. Now, can it function better? Definitely, it could function a lot better than it's functioning now. But in the full context of Liberia and its institutions and agencies, I think she's done a good enough job. One of the places that we don't talk about enough, and it's probably close to my heart because we're in the diaspora, is the Freeport. I think it's the most corrupt and the most poorly run institution that we have in our republic. I know people what are on the peripheral or personally who has this racket, right? Where if you send your car to Liberia and you can't free it, the people that work in the Freeport will buy it for pennies on the dollar. Like I know a guy personally who bought I think it was like a Nissan Altima, a fairly used, I think a 2013 or 2014. Bought it for pennies on the dollars and gave it to his girlfriend. He works at the Freeport. He's an official at that Freeport. Somebody who sent their car there couldn't free it because they charge exorbitant amount of money to free your own property that you sent. You pretty much have to buy the car twice, you know, to free it. And then they default because they can't get the goods out, and then those guys take it personally or they take it and buy it as gifts for their girlfriends or whosoever. And I think that's crazy that we allow that to happen at the Freeport. The reality is it's probably the most, lucrative revenue generating agency that we have in our government. And the first thing we did, we put it in the hands of a foreign entity, and we're not building capacity, in hopes that after this contract is over, we can take over it and further utilize that, that Freeport to generate maximum amount of revenue. So for me, I think that's a big wasted opportunity at the Freeport of Liberia. The reality of Monrovia, you can say. The reality is we should be generating twice as even three times more revenue from that Freeport, but because corruption is rife, robbery is in the open. You have broad daylight robbery of people property that is sent to Liberia because they think that they can transport their lifestyle back home, and people just try to bleed them dry, and then our government allowed this to happen. Alice Comey said something about it a couple of years ago that they need to have a standardized fee for importation at the Freeport because it's like a yo-yo. Anybody can give you any price. If you can't pay that price, your property is in default. It's just robbery. So I think the fishery agency is doing pretty well relative to the other agencies, and the Freeport is abysmal because it's costing the country a lot of money. We're hemorrhaging money at that Freeport, and people are getting enormously wealthy on the backs of the Liberian people by charging diasporans, Liberian business people up the wazoo in terms of fees. And sometimes if you can't pay, your property is defaulted, and they take that property and use it or buy it, themselves for pennies on a dollar, and you're out of thousands of dollars, and for some people, tens of thousands of dollars. So I just want to highlight those two agencies.
Thank you. Well, gentlemen, let us now get into it. Let's start with our institutions. Some of you have started already. And Comrade Sharif, I'm going to come back to you. You mentioned the National Election Commission as, one among many of our institutions that you believe has been doing a better job. And your example is that last election, they conducted a free and fair election, and there was not any violence of any proportion that could threaten the peace. And so you gave them some credit there. So talk to me, is that the only institution you see in our country among many that has been able to do some good works to your satisfaction?
It is one. So you also have to give credit to the former president who didn't pressurize the commission. In some other countries, you're talking about political pressure on the elections commission. However, that said, the commission, entertain no fear of the executive mansion. The commission announced the results as they came in, and it was transparent from what we saw. And so, that's the beginning. If this is how this commission is going to function, that's really the beginning of more confidence in that commission. And so in a country like Liberia, with all of the institutions, different institutions, you're picking out one or two. That is not a good thing for Liberia. But the reason for all of that, we have to go to the you know the main institutions that are the reason why our institutions are inept. We look at Congress or our legislature, right? We look at the House of Representatives and the Senate. What new laws have been made to strengthen these institutions? What are they debating every day? You don't see it. So I think Jerome, or someone else said it. You start with the legislature. These guys don't know that they are co-equals among the three branches of government, and that is a problem for Liberia because that institution is very weak. We're going to continue to have problems. The executive mansion is interfering, as always, into the legislature. We have an all-powerful presidency, which has now been accepted by the other co-equal branches of government. And then you have the police. So I'm going to go quickly now. You have the police that should be gutted and rebuilt. Coleman has done a lot of damage to the Liberian National Police. Suppressing the opposition. Firing tear gas and in some instances, from what I heard, rubber bullets and stuff like that, intimidating the opposition. This is the work of military regimes. You don't do this. And so Coleman, needs to be fired. He's a guy who has created division all over the country. So I don't care if you're under pressure from the executive mansion. You should stand up to the executive mansion for once and be a professional law enforcement officer. He is not. And so he needs to be fired. He needs to be let go. In a new administration, he will be let go. But unfortunately, that's how many more years from now? 5 years from now? And again, we go back to these institutions that are making new laws to make the frequency of to make Liberian elections frequent. So we have to wait for another, 5-6 years to
And
have an
Comrade,
election.
I have to get to your colleagues here quickly, but I have to push back here. You are attributing success to the National Election Commission as one among many that you think they better. What you're considering to be a success, is it because of what the Election Commission has done, or is it more so because the those who participated in the election, decided to play by the rules and respect everything that needed to be respected for us to have a peaceful election? For example, President Weah considered graciously he did not contest the results. We also had donor partners that came, and every time I saw the press conference, you will see them there. They are propping off that institution, almost like babysitting them at every step of the way. And do you still believe this is an independent success of the National Election Commission?
But look, there are other institutions that they're babysitting, but those institutions are still crawling on their bellies, not even on their knees, but they're crawling on their bellies, and they're babysitting those institutions, and they're crawling on their bellies. Look at JFK. JFK now is just for killing. Back in time, Doe era and so on and so forth, JFK was still relevant. What happened now? So yes, the election commission, if you will, it's a two-way street now, because one of the participants, Mr. Weah, decided to play by the rules, right? So you have that component, and let's not overlook that. So I'm not going to allow my disdain for the Weah administration to cloud my objective assessment of of his performance during this election. This is unprecedented. And even though people will say the bar for Liberia is low, well, the bar has been low for a long, long time. So he decided to play by the rules while while the votes were still being counted. There was small amount of ballots still left out there and he decided that, this wasn't for us this time. We're going to come back again, he says. And he conceded. And so that was tremendous. And to your question, that also allowed the commission to then, that validated the outcome of the election, and the commission's work was enhanced by what the president did. So to conclude now, because there are other speakers,
Yes,
the
please.
executive is very important in the sense that whatever the executive does is going to trickle down. So what you saw Mr. Weir did, it allowed the commission work to be enhanced. So that's what we're calling on the executive at all times, to be the example, to make sure that you're leading by example. If you're not coming to work at 8 o'clock, your Minister of Commerce is not going to come to work at 8 o'clock. If you're going to steal money, your Minister of Finance is also going to steal money.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that's why it's important for us to have an executive that is really looking out for their country rather than for themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Evan Morris, I think you mentioned the Liberia Fishery Authority is the one you pointed out as, a better institution that been up to the tax. But Comrade Shari is saying the National Election Commission. Do you have any disagreement? I have my disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have a lot of disagreement. I think it was politicized during the elections. When President Weah was in office, there was a couple of elections where there was some level of violence and contention, but most of those elections, CDC lost. So it told you that at least on the outside looking in, that the election commission was not in the pocket of the CDC government, because they could barely win elections during President Weah's first term. And a lot of these candidates were even afraid to, were afraid to run on the CDC ticket. So I think looking outside and not knowing the minutia of what really went on in the election commission, you would think that they actually was an integrous, agency or a commission, and they held the integrity of our elections, intact. So give them credit for that. But I'm saying this because like the fishery that I mentioned, they're trying to take these people from there. After Lasana Bryan has been suspended for some behavioral problem, they're trying to suspend Emma Glasgow for some, behavioral problem. And everybody now is angling for these positions because they see it as being, reputable. People want to go there and sit on in these, board of director chairs and say that they're heading these agencies. So I don't disagree with Mr. Sharif. I think part of it is that President Weah conceded graciously, and part of it is that many people, and like I said, Mr. Sharif may not like it, but there are many people who was blowing the trumpet that this election is going to be stolen. This election is already going to be stolen. Trust me, the election commission are going to declare George Weah president. Blah blah blah. And to the contrary, they went by what the voter said.
And
President
you are
Boycott
right.
won.
Sharif is one such person who said that election, was going to be stolen. He said that.
Right. So I guess they they outperformed his expectations, which is good for the country, overall. Because had they done the wrong thing and pronounced the wrong winner, and then we could have had conflict in the country. But for me, I would say this: the national police is probably no other institution that is more disliked at the current present moment in Liberia than the national police. I had somebody send me a video today in red light. I mean, there were citizen women were clapping their hands in the face of the police, telling them that they deserve to get beaten like they got beaten by the AFL guys. I mean, the people are just so tired of the Liberian National Police. So I think that's an agency that, on a public face, is being very, 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 has been very disliked for whatever reasons. For those who live in Liberia know more than we do, who live in the diaspora, but I'm guessing it's because they take bribe. They're overly aggressive. They don't show respect for themselves or the institution that they represent, and as such, the people in the communities don't respect them. So I think the Liberian, police, even on the international level, or for us in the diaspora, they take they tend to take sides with wrong actions. You have the fake speaker in the house, and they're there protecting him. They go into the house of the legislature and they beat up people. They're doing all the wrong things and acting like they're the personal bodyguards of these people who are spitting in the face of our constitution. And I think that has rubbed the Liberian people the wrong way, and as such, they become highly unlikable in the society.
Mr. Jerome Getman, you're listening to your colleagues. what I want you to do to join me in the debate is, do you agree or disagree with them? Which institution in your judgment is better among the rest? And which one you think is the worst among the rest in terms of performance?
Well, I'm a victim, so I'm going to give you my personal experience. I went to Liberia 2 years ago, and during the rainy season, my home is in Tingle Village, and it was muddy. So I told my wife I'm going to send my Hummer to Liberia. When the guy came to pick up the car, he charged me $2,500 to take it. He said the estimate was I would pay $3,000 to free the car. And I said, fine, for $5,000, you can take the car. The car got to the port, and I got a bill for $7,000 US. $7,000 US to free my car. So I want to believe what I think Evan Morris is saying. It is a setup that if you send your car to Liberia and you can't free it, okay, they will take it. Somebody wants it, somebody will take it for peanuts. But it so happens that I was able to take a loan to free my car because I needed my car. But between the port and taking the car to Liberia, I could have gone to Liberia and bought a car there to use it for that kind of money, but my own country. So I'm saying this to say that particular agency is terrible. But the worst of the worst is the Liberia National Police. If anybody would have told me that there's another agency in Liberia that is worse than the Port Authority, I would have said you lie. But me being on the ground for 5 weeks and seeing the dislike and the disdain of the Liberian police by the Liberian citizens, when the AFA guy was beating the police, there were civilians that jumped in and took. They said they took their own shot. This afternoon, I saw they were doing the same thing by the city hall, and people were saying, "Oh, the police, you're not starting again. They're coming for you because you didn't learn." So it is difficult. But now on the positive side, I would like to say Dr. Nya, that's his name, Nya, at the national.
Yeah, Dr. Dubayan, that's correct.
Yeah, Dubayan. I have not heard anything negative about him, even though my expectation was very high because I thought by now you will have some national policy on things like imaging, new drugs, new everything. Nothing. We have not heard anything negative about him, but nothing positive for a guy who was in the international press at all times about patenting this, patenting that, creating this, inventing this. Nothing since he got there. So, like you said, the bar is so low that no news is good news. So I gave him a pass. But yeah, fishery, that particular agency, you got to give that lady a credit because 2014, when we went with the University of Florida and Urban University and Miami, we went down there, they were doing the aquaculture. The Minister of Agriculture could not actually defend the need for aquaculture and aqua business. So we sat there for about 15 minutes and they brought this woman in. They said, she is in charge of fishery. And this woman put up a display. When we left, the chair of the research department, University of Florida said, that woman knows her stuff. So I wasn't surprised when she came up with the international loan, $40 million here, $30 million, $6 million here. She have done very well. But besides those two, health, Dubenya and Glasgow, there's nothing there for me to say. Like I said, they got 5 more years. But like the people say, hey, your Christmas is going to be good. You know it on the eve. From what I'm seeing, to make up for some of the error they are making is going to be very, very difficult.
Dr. Willem, we're talking our institutions. Among them all,
Yeah, so
which
what
one
I
or
like
is
to
better?
do, What I like to do is to borrow from the education sector and use a rubric to kind of do this assessment in a more orderly, a more academic way. And so
Great.
I like to assess the performance of government and by extension its institutions from the standpoint of public financial management, service delivery, governance and rule of law, and economic development. So let's start first with public financial management. There are two institutions that are critical in this area. Um, as far as revenue collection is concerned, and debt management is concerned, that falls squarely in the lap of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. They're doing a good job. If we had to rate them between needing improvement, developing, and develop, I would say uh, as far as debt management is concerned, they're developing. They're doing a good job at, well, I say an appreciably good job at managing the debt. Um, but there needs to be a lot of improvements in that. Budget execution. We are still to read a budget performance report. And it's not just this government, but the governments before. That ministry hasn't been able to furnish the public with a budget performance report. And that, for me, is an issue. And so, as far as revenue, not revenue, but debt management and budget performance is concerned, I will give the Minister of Finance uh, leading improvement. Revenue collection, on the other hand, I think the LRA has done an extremely good job. Um, they're outperforming expectations in many ways, yes. Some issues evolved recently with regards to the Commerce Ministry and what have you. But that should not overshadow what the LRA has been able to do in terms not only of its projections, but working to ensure that those expectations, budgetary revenue expectations are met. So I think I will give the LRA, for example, the score of develop, develop. That's on the score of say 0 to 3. The second indicator there will be service delivery. When we look at sectors like health, education, and infrastructure, frankly, not much has happened since this government took over. If roads have been worked on, water and sewer has been struggling as before. We hear about new pipes being put in. Electricity is almost non-existent. And so, as far as infrastructure is concerned, I will put it under needs improvement. That's on the lowest ebb of my metrics. Education, again, this situation is so dire. This minister hasn't come up with yet a a, a convincing enough program around which Liberia and Liberians and educators far and wide can rally. And so I'll put it under needing improvement. Health sector, similarly. And that's for service delivery. When we go to governance and the rule of law, this is where the judicial branch comes in, this is where the legislative branch comes in, of course, the executive. And they are needing serious improvement. Everything that's going on from the frustrations on the street that's leading to all the chaos speaks to the absence of rule of law. The issue of governance also isn't effective primarily because of the absence of rule of law. So access to justice, respect for human rights, security and stability needs enormous improvement. And as a result, accountability is on an all-time low. All right? And that brings us to the fourth and final pillar of this assessment, economic development. Unemployment is high, poverty is high, rising. Foreign direct investments pretty low in Liberia. Domestic investment is appreciably growing, but that's also very low. And so the very business environment needs improvement. So overall, various aspects, other than the two that I named, the LRA, and someone mentioned the Elections Commission, um, holistically, government performance over the last 1 year is in dire need of improvement. And so there's a lot to be done to move it from needing improvement to at least developing or developed. There's a lot to be done, and so much is needed. Leadership is critical to making all of these indicators, scaling up these indicators higher than what they are at the current time.
Let me follow up here. You talk about the LRA, and that you said you put them in the category of develop their revenue or collection. I think you also mentioned they're doing well. My question to you is Liberia as a nation. When you look at Liberia as a nation, in terms of revenue collection, I want you to give me figures here. What is Liberia potential and capacity when it comes to revenue generation? In other words, how much you think Liberia is able to generate yearly in terms of revenue as a country?
The fact, Anthony, the fact that we are able to project close to 800 million speaks to the fact that we're able to do even better. Against the understanding that yes, LRA is doing what it can, but there's still many untapped areas, frankly, in terms of revenue generation. There are many. We have lots of land that is unused, untapped. We're not generating revenue from those. I don't think also as a property owner in Liberia, I don't think we're critically and scrupulously assessing property values as it ought to be. I don't think those who are building the mansions that they're building from stolen funds are putting in the government coffers the values of those properties in terms of revenue collection. I think we're missing on that. More than that, there are other revenue streams that are yet untapped in the country, and the leakages are many, and we're losing out on that. So in terms of potential, the sky's our limit. The sky's our limit. But all of that can be informed and become a reality based on how effectively the economy is run. If unemployment is high, our capacity to generate and mobilize domestic revenue is undermined. And so every government must seek to ensure optimal employment for its people. And through optimal employment, we're able to mobilize domestic revenue. We've relied heavily on foreign direct investment, which is, the case anywhere else in the world. But we do have revenue streams that we've not tapped into. We're exporting all of our gold. All of our minerals are being exported by foreigners. Could we, as Liberians, as a government, tap into that as well? So much so that the government is the one going on the market to ensure that we get, the value of our money. We're not doing that. We're waiting for foreigners to come in, fly and take the minerals out, and we get a minute percentage of what the foreigners are making.
Thank you,
so, yeah, our potential is enormous, but it's the quality of the leadership we employ.
Thank you, Dad. I like that you mentioned quite accurately that in terms of potential, the sky's the limit. So this is a nation that is not able to live up to a potential. That is a failure. Then you also answer my question on capacity. We have failed to build a capacity that will make us to generate billions. That is another failure. Whose responsibility is that? I'll pull it at LRA, and I'll also pull it at the government entirely. So when it comes to revenue generation, when people are giving LRA a passing mark, I'm disappointed. hugely disappointed because if only LRA will only tap on mobile money to collect government revenue. Every morning we talk about the free poor loan. If only you can ask anybody, look, you want to pay government taxes? Use mobile money, let it go in the government account. You will see how much money you will generate. The fact that we have failed to match our potential and to increase our capacity to generate billions in revenue, anybody who praising LRA, they're not thinking human being. They are complete minimalist.
Mr.
And this is why we don't go
anywhere. Mr. C.
Yeah. Actually, that's misplaced aggression. That's misplaced aggression.
I bet
they can be held responsible. The government, and this is where someone mentioned the frustration about this government based on the expectations people had about the government. For a president who has been in government for over 40 years, the expectation was that he knew what the loopholes were. Look, and one of the reasons
and that hold on, that we're speaking to LRA as
Dr. Williams. Let me
that have existed.
Let me chime in with the LRA thing. Why I think it's a complete failure here. First of all, when Mr. Double Jala was tapped, everybody was clapping because he came with a wealth of experience. Now in this country, in these United States, when we talk about tax collection, payroll tax is very critical. But in a country where the unemployment is 91%, according to Martin Colley and everybody else there, based on because the government is the only employer basically other than Metal Steel and few other small companies, their government is the mother employer of the country. 91% of the people are not paying taxes because there's no job. And that should be either 25 to 30% of your total revenue. Secondly, Double Jala, from what I understood when he was coming in, I thought that a man of his stature will come up with a bold policy as something like property identification system, where every home in Liberia will be identified. Because if you don't know how many homes you have in the country, if you don't know how many houses are being built, you cannot tax them. And that is a major source of revenue that is leaking. So those, other than that, to sell fire extinguisher, which is a new thing that Double Jala brought along. Every home should have a fire extinguisher of $40, and it's mandatory for your car and your house. Those are the kind of things that they are raising money on. That is the minimalist he's talking about. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And let me come to Pastor Salif here. You know, I am not talking about the LRA of Double Jala. I'm talking about LRA as an institution that existed. What have they come away in terms of building their own capacity? You know who's been building their capacity? Foreigners have been building their capacity. And the money they're using to build capacity alone, when you look at it, it scares you. But let me leave that. You guys are the one debating. Pastor Saleh, let me come to you. We're looking at our institution. Which ones or one that you think doing better, and which one or ones you think are the worst, and why?
Yeah, I will come to that, and I have to pick it back on some of the things, and I will start from the LRA. I think the criticism being laid at the feet of the LRA, they are in part not fair, okay? Because the LRA has its own operations. The LRA is to collect revenue. How that revenue is expended is not in the purview of the LRA. The LRA cannot... It's just like in America here. Show me where the IRS is creating jobs. The IRS is not the one creating the framework to collect this revenue. To collect this revenue, the IRS goes and they collect the revenue based on the framework that the other organizations, the other agencies of government have created. So it is the executive job, the executive prerogative to create jobs. And the Bureau of Statistics, like Gaben is saying, it's the Bureau of Statistics job to know how many homes are in Liberia, or how many houses. LRA can't do all the work. Other agencies of government are there to do the work, and then LRA collect the revenue. That is their primary reason job. So to lay the criticism at their feet, it is not fair in part because there's a division of labor in the government. Different parts have to play their role. So the LRA, in my view, if I were to grade any department of the government right now, they stand number one. In my mind, they've been collecting revenue. How that revenue is expended, where did the revenue come from? It is the executive branch, it's the executive job to create those atmospheres, to create those infrastructures, to collect more, to generate more revenue. Now, there are so many things that are wrong. So let me start with the land reform problem. The land reform problem is an issue, and it boils down to the judicial system. As somebody already said, the judicial system got to do their job. If I were over the land revenue or what land authority, it's so easy to fix that problem. I don't know why Liberians will complicate everything. Anybody who resells a land to 2-3 people, put the fool in jail. The surveyor that work on that, put them in jail for 5 years, 10 years. Whoever in the archive that signed off on that deed, put all these people in jail for nothing less than 10 years. I bet you your land will be at that place. And people will pass by in 15, 20 years. Nobody will ask, because nobody wants to go to prison. Because the first thing you call a surveyor, they say, no, my hand not inside, I'm not going to prison. You call the whoever from the archive, they will tell you, my hand not in it. But the judiciary said that, the executive said that one person will sell land to 2, 3, 4, 5 people over and over, and there's no body that bears any responsibility for that. So that is a problem. When it comes to the Freeport of Monrovia, let's look at Nigeria, Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana. Those countries, 4 countries that are lined up there, Nigerians leave all the way Nigeria to go to Togo. Nigerians ship cars from America, from Europe to Togo. Benin Republic, Ghana, all these people ship through Togo. Why? For Togo to boost their revenue, they decided to make their port duty-free to certain things. So if you want to boost Liberia's economy, if you want to encourage those in the diaspora to come back, there are some rules that you have to relax. There are some incentives you have to create that will attract those of us in the diaspora to say, you know what, I can go back. Why should Gamer ship his car and has to pay more to clear it from the port? When Togo is duty-free to cars and to certain import, we got the port of Buchanan, we got the port of Greenville, we got the port of Maserati, Freeport. We can decide, okay, this other port will make it duty-free for this. This other port will make it duty-free for this. The more duty-free we create, you got more people that are going to ship things, and these things will boost the economy. The executive don't know what they are doing. They are a complete failure. When it comes to the police, I don't know why Gregory Coleman is still over the police. This man was there during Ellen time. He got let go. Why would Joseph Boakai decide to recycle him? In my estimation, I thought about this police thing all week long. We don't need a police director that is a police officer. No, it's the same way with the ministry. All the ministers, those are political appointees. They don't know what they are there for. They don't know what they're doing. The people that are the technocrat are the deputy minister for operations in those places. Gamer can be a police director. Anthony C.A. can be a police director. We need an administrator that can run the police, and the deputy police director can be the technocrat, can be the police officer who knows this thing. But you just need somebody at the top who can run these things to make sure this thing functions seamlessly, smoothly. Those are some of the things we can do. The Elections Commission, I won't give them all the credit. I mean, thanks, Brother Sharif. Yeah, he spoke some good things about them. But just like Anthony, you said, the peace that we have, the success we've had in our election, it has been mostly based on the players, not the Elections Commission, because we saw from Ellen time, what's his name? His name was Imam Kokoya. Kokoya, the second term, you can quote me. I don't think Ellen has ever won any elections in Liberia. The first election, she didn't win it. ECOWAS came in, they sat in the court. We are the backing that you young, this woman's old, she's been fighting, let us go. You still got time. The second term, she did not win that election again. Kokoya had to go to Ghana before they read his rest. I was in Monrovia before they read his resignation. Ellen made sure she got him on the plane. He flew to Ghana before they read his resignation, and he gave that book of for Samuel Doe. It was the election commission that, and there was conflict. So the election commission has a track record of creating problems in our election. But thank God, since Joseph Boakai and George Weah, after Ellen, the election of Joseph Boakai and George Weah, when it was in problem, it was the same JMB that said no. People said he should make problem. He said no Liberian blood is going to be shed on account of me. He conceded. The same thing with Weah. Weah just conceded too, and that's why we had this peace. It's not because the election commission was so good at their job. It's because the players decided to allow things play out the way they did. The Liberian Revenue Authority is the one that really, for me, have been doing their job. They've been boosting the internal revenue generation. Most of the things we're talking about, that is not in their scope of duty. Let me conclude with this. Leadership, especially political leadership, is about service delivery. I don't care how much money the internal revenue generates. If the executive does not appropriate the money, we are not going to see the social, economic, and cultural impact on the people. It's all in sustainable development. We're not looking about how much money you generate. We want to know what is the impact on the lives of the people, on the livelihood of the people. If you go to Liberia, there's acute suffering. People can't even find food to eat. So it doesn't matter, So this is my failure in the government. You asked me which one, so that's what I would conclude and chose to make it last. The executive mansion is the failure because they are the top dog and the buck stops with them. We have to, what is the performance in, what is the performance assessment review that executive mansion had done for the people they appointed? Because I don't care how we criticize the internal revenue. I don't care how we criticize the people at the Freeport. I don't care how we criticize any agency or government. Who appoints them? It's the president. The executive mansion appointed them. So if they are not performing, what is the executive mansion doing? You're firing 400, you're suspending 450 people because they did not sign assets, they did not declare assets. You bring them all back. What are you doing to hold these people accountable for the position you appointed them in? If you were a CEO of a company and a department is not functioning, you just leave the department to continue, you just keep paying salary? No. If a company hire you, Google hire you now, Joy Reid has lost her program because her rating went down. So they had to let her go, even though we're trying to attack the race, play the race card to that. But in effect, her performance, her viewership went down. Laura Ingram on Fox News is still averaging 3 million views per show. Joy Reid was just around 750. So they had to let her go. So people take drastic action. Who has Joseph Boakai assessed? Who has Joseph Boakai, which job performance review has it done? And say, hey, you're not functioning. You got to go and let me bring in somebody else to do the job. That's how companies progress. That's how companies make their millions and billions of dollars, because they bring in the brain that can bring in the profit. If we are not putting people in at the head of these departments and ministry that can make Liberia make profit, then why keep them there? So the executive mansion is the biggest failure. The president doesn't know what he's doing. His advisors don't know what they're doing. And if we put blame on these other lower agencies, we're just putting the blame on them and trying to absorb Joseph Boakai of his failure. The man is a complete failure. He was a fraud on the Liberian people, and we need to think better. That's what I would think.
Mr. Dugley, we're talking about institutions. Which one is working? Which one is not working? And why? Which one is the worst? Which one is better?
Well, I'm saying it's very difficult when you talk about institution in Liberia. I just wanted to touch on, the fishery and aquaculture that Brother Morris was talking about. See, this department is not a new department. Since the inception of the Ministry of Agriculture in 1956, up until 2017, it was a department of the Ministry of Agriculture. So what you see, though, it was created by an act of the legislature to be an independent, autonomous body. So, but nothing new there was nothing new there. It was just transferred from being part of the Department of Agriculture to an autonomous body, meaning everything you see now was there. And they are not also performing to capacity, because it's not just, I remember, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, the head of that department was in Egypt, trying to get the Egyptian government to help them to establish some, fishery research institution, something like that, to that effect. So all what you're seeing or what you're talking about should be something that should have been well established. Something like, the fish stock pricing, the economic viability of that institutions. These were things that should have been well established before they went autonomous. So what you see today is just one more example to tell you how dismal and how unwilling our politicians are to do well for us, because that is a very, very important department of the Ministry of Agriculture that they should have invested in, they should have focused on, because it would have created more jobs. But every time, the way we deal with these institutions, we deal with them for subsistent purposes only. Look, we heard over some time how other nationals, including some Chinese, were coming in our waters, fishing in our waters and then taking the proceeds westward, and even other African countries were doing the same thing to us. So that just speaks to the lack of proper managing these institutions, so that they can be a sustainable revenue generating institution. Once you're not doing that, nothing else matters, because that's the purpose for which it was created. But it's not doing that, and it's not a new institution, really. That's the point I'm trying to get across here. They are performing, despite what you talk about, bringing in what is it, Glasgow, we're trying to do here. So I mean, I wouldn't consider that a success. And then when you come to even the Ministry of Agriculture itself, that ministry is supposed to be one of the backbone of our economy, where there can be job created in our stable food production, research. You got Kerry in Bond County there. What are they doing? Why up to now we are not able to feed ourselves? We have to survive on imports that come into our country. When we have fertile environment, the soil is good, the land is there, the manpower should be available with no problem. Why is it that after all these number of years, we are still unable to feed ourselves? In the 60s and in the 50s and the 60s, when Sekou Touré became president of Guinea, Guinea was feeding itself. There was never a shortage of food during the era of Sekou Touré in the Republic of Guinea. Why was that? Because Sekou Touré was determined to make sure that Guineans feed themselves. So we have no reason, we have no justification. We are not performing to our capacity. We are not. I mean, it's just so embarrassing. You talk about LRA. I mean, LRA, yeah, they've done some good things, but it's way below where they should be. And so we shouldn't be patting them on the back that they are doing well if they are not performing to capacity, despite all what has been spent on them. And remember, this department also used to be part of the Department of Finance, Ministry of Finance, until it went autonomous. Again, these are not new institutions. But you see, the problem that I see in Liberia, we have come to internalize mediocre to be the proper way of doing things. And anyone who talks anything contrary to that, you are seen as some foreign, some far removed person who have no clue. And this brings me to the National Port Authority. This institution is supposed to be the gateway to the economy of the Republic of Liberia. But again, because the people who are running these institutions, their primary objectives, is nothing for Liberia but themselves. Why should our port be managed by foreigners? Why should our port be managed by these big companies that are only in it for their own interests? Are we lacking the capacity to do these things, or is it because we feel that it's easier to say, "Oh, this company is the one doing this company is the one doing that," and so you can easily throw it on? This is it's a national pride. It should be a national pride, but the unfortunate thing is we are still doing things the old way that led us to the destruction of ourselves. Liberians in the diaspora are shipping their goods to Guinea and then transporting them back to Liberia, simply because in Guinea, the process is very straightforward. You know what to expect. You know how to go about doing things. Where in Liberia, nothing is predictable. Just like Brother Gamer just told us his misfortune that occurred. By the way, I hate to say this, but this is not something unique to you, Brother Gamer. This is a common occurrence in Liberia. And that's the reason why many businesses many business people in the diaspora are using other countries' ports to import their goods and then transport them by land to Liberia because of the way Liberia ports is managed. And the national police is a national disgrace. It has always been like that. When I was a kid, a little kid growing up in Monrovia, we never liked the police. They have never done a good job. Even after the war, these were one of the institutions that we needed to invest in so that they can be a force for good. But unfortunately, it seems that they did not learn the lesson. They have not learned a lesson. Neither has the military, the AFL has learned their lesson. I would have thought by now we've gone past where we were last week with the police and the army. I mean, how disgraceful is this? Gregory Como shouldn't be wearing that uniform. Gregory Como does not deserve to wear that uniform as head of that institution.
Thank you.
He is not qualified. He does not have the knowledge. He does not have the know-how. Like you said, I don't know which one of you finally said, you do not need a police officer to be head of the police. No. You need a manager. You need a politician. And then beneath you have a career. I mean, this is just so rudimentary that we should know this. I mean, for our age as a nation, for our experience as a nation, others in the sub-region should have been borrowing, learning from us. Despite our misfortune of 14 years of the trade, I would say we still should have been in a position where these countries will come and learn from us.
Thank you.
We entrusted the Nigerian to arm our police, and look at what's happening.
Thank you. You know, the police got some training after the war. I know the international community, they call it, came in. They conducted training. A good number of our police officers were sent to Nigeria. Some personal friends of mine went to Nigeria. They got trained and they came back and they got further training. But that's for another day. Gentlemen, let us get to the other segment of our debate. From what I gather from you, our institutions, on the average, they're not doing too good. I hope our policy leaders, our political leaders, and our representatives and senators are listening so that we can find way of getting the right people hailing our institutions who will lead this institution to excellence, effectiveness, and proficiency. Until we can get that to happen, we will continue to cry. And I agree with, I think, Pastor Salih, who said that, look, the president hired these individuals. Is he evaluating their performances? Is he following up? Is he checking to see they are doing what he appointed them to do? And if they're not doing that, what's wrong with just replacing them and putting somebody there? Because the reason of putting those individuals in those places is to make sure that they will do the job. But in the president's judgment, it's obvious they are doing a job. The only thing he wants to do is suspend them for a few minutes and let them go back. That's all he cares about. Now, let's talk about those who are charged with the running of our institutions. Individuals who are heads of agencies, who are heads of branches of governments and ministries, who are among them do you see is moving the needle a little bit in terms of competence, proficiency, and clarity when it comes to leadership? Who leadership style is visible? Who is moving the needle in your judgment? Have you, after seeing that, and we can go as far back as 200 years if you like, who in the past you think also might have had any of our institution and really led it with brilliance and was an example? We want to know that. And with that, we'll start with Commercial Read, because you are good with the history. So, I mean, give me some history lesson here in terms of leaders in the past and bring it to today. Give it to me, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you for calling me at this time, because it's about 8 a.m. Saturday morning now. I gotta run.
Okay.
Go on my normal routine again. And so I'll take leave for you guys. But yeah, so our institutions, so right now, so I'll go through right now. Right now, someone mentioned, although briefly, the National Institute of Health. So I see some movement. I see Dr. Yan trying to do some things there, right? So for that reason, I have hope that that institution will only grow because of the things that he's doing, the different things he's doing, the activities that he's engaged in. um I would like to see a public relations officer, though. Sometimes my brother, my big brother Jan, he would put releases out, I think. I don't know if these are coming from the public information officer, but I would like to see one there.
Maybe
So that's
you can tell him to hire me.
yeah, there you go. If he's watching, this is my plea, from his little brother, to hire, Anthony right here, to work with the National Institute of Health. I'm very serious about that. That's a place that I've watched a little bit, and I think that's someone is needed there rather than the director himself. And then you look at him, and you go beyond that. I've already talked about the Elections Commission. That did a good job. Hopefully they'll continue to do that. Beyond that is nothing. But I always go back to why all this is happening. So in order to understand why all of this is happening, you have to look at the legislature. You really have to look at our legislature first. What new laws since after the Civil War has been implemented? What new laws have been enacted? The United States of America, as Councilor Freeman said the other day, or wrote the other day, there have been all these amendments in the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution was not this way. It was broadened. So over the years, issues came up. There was a Civil War. There was Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and all these different things that impacted the American society. And so the American society changed with those events. And the changes were made as they went along. There were protests. And as I mentioned, there was a Civil War. Hundreds of thousands of Americans were killed. And so, there were new enactments. There was amendments to the Constitution. Articles 13, 14, Amendment 13, 14, and 15 of the American Constitution. So when it comes to Liberia, what did we do after the Civil War? There were supposed to be a lot of amendments when it comes to Liberia. None of that was done. Why? The new leadership that got in was not that interested in changing anything. Comrade Anthony, the thing is that when some of us who are talking now, when we sit in these offices, we tend to forget about what we preach. And that is a big disappointment. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf came in. She had the perfect opportunity to, really muster the courage to try to change our Constitution. Change the Constitution for the betterment of the people, for the betterment of the country. And one of the things you wanted to look at is reduce the term of offices for the president, the senators, the House of Representatives, members of the House of Representatives. These are terms that are so long that when you elect a senator, you can forget it. You don't do anything to him or her. They're sitting there for 9 years. So all of what we're saying now, how is it that if if one of these institutions is not functioning, let's say you guys talking about, the corruption at what was it, the port or LPRC, one of these institutions, you can, as a member of the House of Representatives or even the Senate, can call the director in for a conference. It's called hearing. They can call them in for a hearing, for a hearing where questions will be asked. Anthony, the last time there was a hearing with the Public Works Minister, what happened? Public Works Minister apologized for something. So people go in there and say, look, I made a mistake, I apologize. And this is supposed to be acceptable, right? This is supposed to be acceptable in Liberia. Why is it acceptable? That's the reason why that the country does not move forward. No, you're not here to apologize. We're here to hold you accountable. So if I'm sitting in the House of Representatives or if I'm sitting in the Senate, I can tell you, you can keep your apologies. Okay, you apologize to the Liberian people, go put that in a newspaper article. But we're not here to accept apology. We're here to hold you accountable. So the idea that people can just go and apologize, oh, the man made a mistake. It's a mistake. Everybody make mistakes. You got guys sitting there understanding this also, that everyone makes mistakes. Oh, let's move on. Liberia is a country where people try to move on from everything. So I can go in now, I become a minister, I can steal $1 million the next day. And I just go ahead and apologize. Oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to do this. I just make a mistake. I just made a mistake. And that apology is accepted. As long as I go through the right people, the apology is accepted. In the United States, it's different. You're going to get charged. Evidence will be collected and you're going to get charged and you may likely go to jail. So there's no accountability for any of these institutions. You can do whatever you want. It's fashionable to be corrupt. And then we do all of these things and then we come to the United States. We go to Japan. We go to India. We go to Israel. We go everywhere begging for money. I mean, we beg everywhere for money.
Thank you, Comrade.
We are one of the biggest beggars on the continent. One of the biggest beggars on the continent. And it's a shame to me. I feel very ashamed that my people, as a Black man, a son of the continent, a son of Liberia, that my leaders can go to the West, can go to Asia, can go to other places, even to other African countries, and bend on bended knees and ask for money to feed their thirst, to feed their corruption, their inclination for corruption is through the roof. We haven't seen anything, Anthony, we haven't seen anything like this in the past. This is at another level. And I'm not just talking about this administration. I'm going back, right? I'm going back to previous administration. What we've seen after the Civil War, this is something, this is absolutely unacceptable. And
Thank
lastly, the enticement of public service. Public service is public service. This enticement has to end. It's way too much money to be earned in the public service in Liberia. Public service is not where you go to get rich. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
that's not supposed to be public service. So I thank you for your time. I got to run, and good luck to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade, for your
Thank you, brother Sharif.
yeah,
Stay
Thank you.
safe.
All right, thank you.
yeah. So that Dr. Williams, those who are representing our institutions who are serving us, do you see a bright spot with any of them? Is any of them moving the needle, showing competence, leadership, and transformation?
I'll be honest with you. There is, like I said earlier, um, we have to be honest with ourselves. For all the projections and estimations we have about where our country ought to be, um, it has to start with us. And I say that to say, when you look in government today, there's just about nobody, no voice around which Liberians can rally. Nobody speaks to rally Liberians, and that's scary. It speaks of the void that should necessarily sit in the presidency. It does not exist. And we say it's where we are as a nation. We speak to why things are occurring the way they're occurring, which is an incentive to unscrupulous individuals in government to do the things they're doing because there is not a voice strong enough to disincentivize stealing, to disincentivize the level of unproductivity that we're witnessing. And so I wouldn't put the crown on any head at the moment because I don't see leadership being exhibited at any level of our country, not in the legislature, not in the judiciary, and of course, not in the. As a matter of fact, leadership today is coming more from social media than in government. You know, it's the reverse. It's the reverse, and that's not fair to a nation that has suffered so long. I think the country deserves better, and the likes of us who have the passion and wherewithal to continue to speak truth to power should continue. We should not relent. Um, I think Liberia needs us now more than before, and it is our duty and responsibility to continue to keep the government's foot to the fire while we project for the future in terms of what we will want to see in a government and not go in and become functionaries like the ones we see today. There's all the application before they get in, and once they're in, application is thrown through the window, and people just become, armchair functionaries of government, and that's exactly what's happening today.
Dr. Willen, what's about the president? What's about Double Jala? Are they individual? What's about Sarah Besloyenti? Are these people not moving the needle?
They're not moving the needle. So I don't sound contradictory. I did say initially that the LRA, in my view, uh, was on a higher scale than many of the other institutions around it, and I maintain that. I think within the scope of his responsibilities, he's doing what he can with what he has. Can he do better? I believe so. He can do way better than he's doing now. For him to be more effective, there has to be a lot of reform that are initiated by the executive to ensure that the likes of LRA and all these other institutions we're talking about are more functional and more accountable. But as it is, someone mentioned, why aren't payments being made directly to the government account through mobile money? That's that's common sense. That's common sense. If that was happening, and we're digitizing payments, it would disincentivize the guys at the port who are now ensuring that people, are unable to meet their obligations as far as freeing things out of the port is concerned. And you do a survey of government. That's precisely what's happening. We're leaving loopholes open for people to exploit. And the more those holes are not addressed, those void gaps aren't addressed, people will continue to exploit them. And so, you know, other than Double Jala, who he doesn't have the voice because of his role. He doesn't have the voice, the social mobilization voice that I speak of. But as far as raising our revenue is concerned, I think he's doing his level best with what he has and what's available. The onus is on the executive to create the environment that will necessitate and nurture employment for her people so that greater revenue is generated. Yeah.
What's about the pro tem? What's about the majority block speaker? You don't see anybody still?
There is absolutely nobody.
Okay.
Nobody.
All right. Yeah. I leave it there. I try my best to suggest individuals who are trying, but you don't see anyone. Mr. Gilman, you might have seen someone that you're always mentioning, Dubayan. Dubayan is a big brother to me, by the way. I have access to him. I get him anytime I want to. But it's not in my business to pray. Once you are in public office, I may be your friend, but I don't praise you. Go ahead. Who's doing better besides your Dubayan? Look. There might be some people there.
Yeah, before I go to let me tell you who is the worst performing minister of the Republic of Liberia, maybe in history, is Mr. Gamfoin, that called himself the Minister of Finance.
Why you say that?
Listen, those of us who are students of history, when you come to a job like this, especially when they have taught your horn, that we are bringing him back because he is going to bring the economy back to where it's going to be. And I'll give you a record. Let's look at during the Great Depression, which is where our present situation now can be compared to the Great Depression. FDR's economic team, the economic advisor led by the economic guy, he says, after thinking, our team have put together a platform that we think will elevate this country. And they came with the 3 R's: relief for the unemployed, recovery, and reform of the financial system. And they called that the New Deal. And we saw what happened to the New Deal that catapulted this country from the Great Depression and what it did. That is an economic team headed by the finance folks. Then let's follow that by Harry Truman when he came in. He signed the Economic Recovery Act. These are major things that transform. And then after him, Dwight Eisenhower came, and he came with this thing we call the interstate highway. We are talking about thinkers, people who come in and say, we are going to transform. They came up with something called WPA, the Work Programs Authorities Administration. It is where they said everything in this country has broken down. We are going to make sure that everybody gets a job. So what they did, everybody that was able, they were building roads, they were building hospitals, they were building schools, they were building anything you could think about to put the people to work, to stimulate the economy. When Joseph Walker talk about roads, and agriculture, you think Gamfoin and Amara Kone, all of these folks that got all these papers on the wall will get together and say, Chief, we are going to put people on every road in this country. They will be putting crush racks on every road as they did in Laos. We're going to have people digging on every farm in this country. We're going to have people doing this. So the whole place, people can be working. Within a year time, we'll be now picking cassava leaf, we'll now be picking planting, we'll be feeding ourselves. But these people are only good on papers. For this economic team to tell the president that all we need to do now is pray. And I'm saying to myself, why would the economic team of Joseph Boyka ask us to pray when you have Iman Krayi on your board of director? You pay him. You got Dr. Reed paying him. You got the man from ACO. These people who claim to have a direct line to God, they are on your team. And you're asking us sinners to pray for the economy to turn around. This is unacceptable. It is a failure. It is incompetence. And whoever see these guys and call them Mr. and Honorable and say he worked at the World Bank. What did he do at the World Bank? He worked at African Development Bank. What did he do at African Development Bank? A gentleman walked with me in Liberia and said, I work on Wall Street. I asked him, what did you do on Wall Street? He was a mailman. He was on a bike carrying mail from office to office. But when he comes to Liberia, he think I didn't know him in Liberia. In New York, I knew him. When he comes to Liberia, he said, I work on Wall Street. And everybody claps for him when he walks in. But what were you doing on Wall Street? What was Ganfa doing at the World Bank? What was he doing in Uganda? He came back, absolutely nothing. So my friend, if anybody tells me in this government that Amara Kone and Ganfwan are some economic genius, it's a lie.
Mr. Gilman, I think you said it all. I agree with you. It is a lie. These people, they recite. They are good at recitation to earn papers. They must put it to work. Let me see the fruits of that paper, then I'll believe it. And I will add to what you said. When Obama came in, Larry Summers could not sleep. He was busy. The economic team of Obama, they were busy all night. And then they came up with a stimulus package of $880 billion to invest in infrastructure. The U.S. economy that tanked completely, the housing market that crashed in 2008.
Yep.
They resurrected it. All right. When Biden came, he came with Build Back Better. His team got together, they put an economic plan together. Even in the midst of COVID, they were able to stimulate the U.S. economy and keep the major sectors of the U.S. economy afloat. These people are reciting, they are having empty interviews and speaking big book with nothing. I like the example you gave. Why are human beings not on these roads putting crushed rocks? Where are the yellow machines? Why are they not on these roads? Who have they trained for the 280 yellow machines? Where is Grand Crew 18 yellow machines? I want to see them on the road going to Grand Crew. I want to be superintendent. They're making my work difficult, but I'll leave it. You guys are the debaters here.
Anthony, let me put it in a way that the Liberian
I haven't had a chance in a while.
Go ahead, Mr. Evan
We've
Morris.
none of us have spoken.
Sometimes I forget that money rating I can get Saturday. I won't participate. Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Thank you. In response to Mr. Gamey, I want to push back a little bit. I'm no big fan of Gafwan or Amara Conan, but I will give you a football analogy, right? If you take Lionel Messi and put him on the Liberian football team, you think we're going to win the World Cup or the African Cup of Nations? Conducive environment is always important. So even when you take very talented people and you put them in a situation with, where they're surrounded by a dilapidated system, a non-functioning system where they can't thrive in and use their, their intellect and their geniuses, their genius to really, excel and shine, they're almost going to fall through the cracks. They're going to outperform the other people, but not to the level where a Gafwan could perform at a World Bank or an African Development Bank, which is way more structured in our finance ministry, which have more qualified and well-learned and experienced people than our finance ministry. So sometimes the environment that you take these people from in and you bring them into Liberia, like the same thing here. That's why people who are Walmart manager think they can become ministers in Liberia because they think Walmart is more structured and have more accountability and know how to do things right than the Liberian government. So if you're a Walmart manager and you go to Liberia, you think you know how to function there properly because Walmart, in your eyes, is more advanced than the Liberian government as a whole. So let's not degrade these guys. I think they're some of the best brains we have in the country in terms of finance. And when they go into a setting that is more appropriate or that is more, that
Morris,
No,
let me
no.
hold you. They
I
are
will push back
brilliant
hardly on that.
by
man.
any academic credentials. We are talking about productivity. We are talking about delivering results. We are talking about transformation, innovation. These people, they don't have it. Let me
One
give you an
second.
example. Hold on. Let me give you an example. A fuller man. This is not about how much education one. And so we are talking about
This got
getting
nothing
the
to do
damn
with
job
education.
done. Hold on, gentlemen. We are talking about getting the damn job done. This is why we're talking about. A fuller man comes from Guinea. He shows up in Liberia. He starts a Willa market. The next thing you know, that man has a shop. The same thing with the Lebanese men will come from Lebanon. He will barely have nothing. Maybe with few if he give a Liberian man, let's say, $10,000 now, give them a place to start a business, it will collapse. It will collapse. So it's not about education. We're not talking education here. These guys earn their degree honorably. We know that.
No. Let me finish my thought, please.
We are talking
Let me
about
finish
getting the job done. They don't have it.
Let me finish my thought, please. So take a Gafwan. His previous job before becoming finance minister, he was a managing director of the African Development Bank in Uganda. I think he served in that position for 4 or 5 years. He did a good enough job that he was there for those many years. So he wasn't somebody who was incapable. He has capacity. We can't just sit here and say that this guy is not capable. He is capable. But the budget and the structure and the support system that he has at the African Development Bank doesn't have that same system in Liberia. Plus, the man has only been on the job for less than a year. So let's give him time. He certainly is a qualified personnel.
I
You can't
disagree.
just say that
But
he's incapable. He is capable.
This man
I
served on
disagree,
Ellis
Elvis.
for 10 years before he left. What are you talking about?
I disagree,
Nah,
Elvis.
it's not the same environment. You working in the United States, working in the system, and going to Liberia, it's a complete shock to your system.
No,
The way they do things, the way people operate. People don't have a standard operating procedure in the country. A lot of the people that's below you are vastly unqualified to even work on the same level that you need. So it's a problem in Liberia. Capacity is just not there as you'll find in the West or even in other African countries. Let's admit that.
Mr. Murray, you
look,
made your point. Let me bring in Pastor Salif. Yeah, Mr. Salif, I think you have a disagreement as I do, but go ahead. You are the bit.
completely disagree. 100%. Gafwan cannot take 4 years to learn what to do. He's been there. He's been at that finance before. He was foreign minister. He's been all these places. Nobody should sit here on this platform to absolve these people of their inept behavior. We cannot absolve them. If you sit as a finance minister, how many hours do these people take to sit and think critically on how to rescue the Liberian economy? These guys don't do it. They're just having fanfare around the place, chasing women and doing foolishness and just having big show. They're not thinking. Gafwan, they don't say Gafwan should show me his worksheet that I sat down 5 hours thinking on how I can turn Liberia economy around. I don't think he has ever done it. I don't think Americana ever did it. These guys just get this position and it's just big show for them. They're not doing no critical thinking. They're not investing anything. That's why when you came in, I said, let me give you the time because like you picked my mind. I was also going to speak to the Liberian people because as it stands right now from the statistics I have, Liberia is youthful. Liberia has about 60% youthful population. And all these people are soccer enthusiasts. So since you brought Messi, we're not going to use Messi. Every transfer window, the teams in Europe, the countries around the world, Africa and Europe, why do they hire coaches? Why do they pay them so much money? It's not just to win games, it's to win tournaments. That's why they pay them all that money. And when these players get transferred to a team and they did not win any tournament that year, they sell most of those players. They put them out on loan. If Liberia was a soccer team, we can't be hiring people like Gafwan. We're failing. Why would we keep them there? Why should we keep them? We never won any tournament under Gafwan or Amarakone or any of these foolish people. So why should we keep them there? And then we say, oh, because the difference. The Africa bring coaches from Europe. and they bring them to Africa and they win tournaments with African team. So how will we say it's because of the environment? It's not the environment, it's the management skills. These people don't do any critical thinking. I don't think these people sit down any day. Barack Obama turned around the early economy of America from 2008. He turned it around. Why? Because today you still listen to people who work with him. Barack Obama was one president that would take jobs from the White House. He doesn't sleep at night. He's still perusing this thing, trying to think, burning his brain cells to see how he could turn around the economy. What do these fools that we put in position in Liberia, do they ever think? As I sit here in my own little corner, every day I'm thinking, how can we turn Liberia around? The people in this position, do they ever think, how can we turn it around? No, they just sit there and they just embezzling money. That's all they do. They just embezzle and embezzle and embezzle. Government, they just sign all kind of check and just practice corruption. They're not thinking critically on how to turn. So we're not going to absorb them. They are just criminal. They are corrupt. That's why things are not being turned around. If we put the right people in the right places, and that's what frustrates me so much, that we have a country, the only people we appoint are people that carry ballot boxes that were shouting, people who don't know anything about what they're doing, about what they're talking about. We appoint them because, oh, the person is partisan. This partisan doesn't know anything. If Gafwan was at finance before, and what was his deliverables? If he did not succeed, then why bring him back? He was at the foreign ministry. What was his track record? If he did not turn things around, why bring him back? Which coach, since Elvis brought soccer, which coach in Europe, which country in Europe, which club in Europe will bring a coach that brought that took the team from first division from Premier League and they were relegated, and they will say, let's bring that same coach back again? That caused this team to be relegated. Liberia is relegated because of the people that are leading us, because of the people that are handling the affairs. Our economy has been relegated. The entire country is relegated. Today we are amongst the 7 poorest countries, amongst I think the 10 or 7 poorest countries in the world. We have been relegated, and then we still hire the same people. That's complete foolishness. We can't absorb these people. These people, if they know what they do, if they know what to do, like you said, Elvis, then that means they are just absolutely, totally corrupt. That means they know what to do, but they refuse to do it, and they are just carrying on corruption. Because if you know what to do it, why not work to lift your country out of the backwardness we are? This is unacceptable. We should not praise any of these people.
Well said, Pastor Sally. Well said. And Elvis, I'll come back to you. Can you share with us Gafwan plan, his economic plan since he became finance minister? He took over from Women Kamara. The economy was so heavy on his head. He was struggling with it. They have to pressure him. He had to resign. They went to Gafwan to rescue us. So this rescue finance minister, has he communicated in any way? Can we go anywhere and say, look, this is the bullet point that Gafwan has come up with, that he has articulated as in line with this arrest agenda, so-called arrest agenda?
I don't want you guys to miss my point. Like I said, I preface this on the point that I'm not a big fan of his. My bigger picture here, like Mr. Salif said, right? You're using a football analogy. The reason people buy new players to come into the team is because they realize that the players that are there are insufficient. They're not good enough. So they replace bad players with better players. The point that I'm making is, if you take a superstar and put him in a team for the bad players, that team is not going to perform optimally. You have to replace the players with better players. So you have a finance ministry where some of the people there who are supposed to be doing the legwork and be doing, middle level work, they're not up to up to the standard. So Gafwan coming in there at the top is going to make some improvement, but the bottom is heavy with people who lack the capacity. That's the point that I'm making. I'm not telling you that. That's the point. And who's that on, Gafwan or the government?
Gafwan,
Mr. Sear, one man, just one man. You work in a company, the kind of training and other things that everybody has to do. There's a standard there for everybody that's in that company. It's not like that in Liberia. Some people working at the finance ministry got no business working in it. They just got a degree in finance from the University of Liberia, but they don't have the capacity. So if you go to the World Bank, right, where almost everybody there at the top level in their department in the capacity. You're going to thrive more because you have a team, a structure of people who are well qualified, who makes the machine to run well. So if you just say Gafon coming and he's going to transform the whole thing, regardless of the people that's beneath him, I think that's a flawed argument to make. Anybody from the United States can just go into Liberia and transform the system.
Already the man, he has the power to hire his team. Okay, you can't say he's the CEO of that corporation. He has the power and authority to surround himself with the best. And all the tribal people they are hiring.
Oh no, Mr.
Now tell me now. Can you give me an example of a reason why the central bank president makes $56,000 a month?
Mr. Gay, I'm not protecting or defending these people. I'm just saying, look at the bigger picture. Put it in perspective. Why do you think Ellen Jones? 1 second. Why do you think Ellen Joseph Sirleaf brought a lot of young college graduates and people who had some experience in the United States to bring her? Brought a lot of them in her government because she knew they had the capacity.
How many of them?
Elvis, I think.
Let Mr. Ducle come in here quickly. Mr. Ducle, you go ahead.
Elvis, I think the problem with your analogy is that, remember, we had Antoinette Seye holding that very position, and she excelled in that position. So with that, I don't think you can use the analogy to justify what you just said, because if that was the case, Antoinette should not have succeeded.
No, she resigned because of the things was dysfunctional. She went back to the World Bank and she truly excelled there.
It doesn't matter, but the point I'm making, she succeeded in what she was doing. She worked. And I must make this point, gentlemen. The position that Gafon was his position in Uganda, it was a lower tier position, by the way, guys. Okay? Remember, he was an ex-finance minister of the Republic of Liberia. Tell me one single person who works in that position that was ex-finance minister for any country on the continent. I had a friend here who graduated with me from graduate school. He held that same position in Tunisia, and from Tunisia he was transferred to what's the country called? Was it Botswana? A Mauritanian guy. He never had any ministerial position. So the position Gafon had in Uganda was a lower tier position, by the way. With that said, Dr. Watt said something earlier. I just wanted to reflect on that to speak about some of the reasons why these institutions are dysfunctional the way they are. You see, before, when I was growing up as a child, my parents used to walk with me to the school, and this old papa, they carry the bag of money, they just pay the tuition. Now, some schools have come to find a way to deal with that. You go to the bank, you pay your child's school fees. You are given a receipt. You take it to the school to prove that you have made a payment, right? That way, they have eliminated one level of people's ability to corrupt or not to pay the tuition, etc., or to play with it. So, the National Port Authority being what it is, if they are actually serious that they want to bring it under control so that it can be the generating institution that it should be, they can digitize payment where nobody handles physical cash. That way, but because if you do that, the people who are supposed to be running that institution will have very little to put in their pocket, and so it's not incentivizing for them to promote anything like that. But they know the solutions, they know what the problems are, and on top of the fact that the laws are not deterring, people are not afraid of the outcome or the consequence of their behaviors. So if you have people who know that there's no deterrent, if you steal the money from Port Authority and you are well connected within the system, you're going to get away with it. Otherwise, these people, Jala at the LRA, he is an accomplished guy, well, highly educated and experienced. Don't you think that he knows some of these things that need to be done? But remember, he's if he was in the United States, he knows exactly what to do, and he would do it. But because our institutions, as we know them to be, they are not there to serve the people. And again, I said earlier, these institutions are the reflection of the people who runs them. So as a result, nothing's going to get done.
And don't forget about the fact that everything starts from the head. The president's supposed to set the tunes, and then everybody follows. But we don't have any of that. So Gafuan, when he was Minister of Finance, before he went to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he did relatively well compared to what he's doing now. So I don't think Elvis Morris' analogy really holds water here, simply because there were other people who were before him, and they did succeed somewhat in that same position in the same environment.
Thank you, and I like the way the place the debate is now. Dr. Williams, you get the final word.
Can I get 30 seconds?
All right, let me give you 30 seconds and we'll go to Dr. Williams for the final words on this.
One person can do the job is frivolous. It's ludicrous.
Please, 30 seconds. I'll keep you to your word. I'll hold you accountable.
30 seconds. It's completely ludicrous. There was a time South Africa was Africa's #1 economy. Nigeria was failing. Banking institution, everything was failing. People start bank today. It closed down with people money. Obasanjo's second term, he brought in a guy called Charles Soludo and made Charles Soludo the central bank governor. That's where Nigeria economy turned around. So he was the one that instituted the change that turned Nigeria economy around. Today, Nigeria is Africa's #1 economy, and no country in Africa will catch up with it. It was one person that came to the central bank that turned that around. So I'm not going to sit down here to listen to lecture about Gafuan. No, he's a failure, or he's corrupt. Because if you know the right thing to do and you can't do it and you just steal it, then you're corrupt. You intentionally corrupt. One person can turn it around.
Thank you. That's a
Jerry Rollins that turned Ghana around. He was one man.
Yeah, one man can do it. That's leadership.
Well, to add to the debate, I will say this much. Gafuan hasn't been there, I believe, more than a year, and that's not an excuse in his favor. But that ministry for the last 30 or so years has focused its on budget preparation and budget expenditure. There has been no critical transformative program emanating from that ministry. And it would seem it has become a norm for all of them. I am going to hold on for another year to see what happens with Gafuan still at the helm, to see if he doesn't and cannot come up with something transformative. His performance the other day in front of the legislature brought a lot of questions to the fore. It suggests ill preparation for the role, having served that very role before. He knows where we are economically. He knows what needs to be done. The hope is that sooner than later, he's going to make his presence felt. If he cannot do that in the soonest possible time, we can blame not this early in the game. Just like we're saying to the government, yes, things aren't going right, but we're hoping that sooner than later, transformation can take place. And that's why I'm happy with the quality of this conversation and many other conversations like these. It will propel government officials sitting in office who are career armchair autocrats to begin to do things differently, because we have too many of those around, and we need to see the difference felt, not just for us but for our people as well. And so I'm not going to judge Gafuan harshly for another, for a while more to see what happens,
Mr. William, I disagree with you 100%. No, hold on. Hold on. I disagree with you.
Disagreement sustained. You get 30 seconds.
I'm coming. The reason I disagree with you 100%, if this is Gafuan's first time coming to this position, I will give him one more year. Yes. This fool has been there before.
All things is not constant, Mr. Salih.
Give him chance, Evans.
Let him hold me accountable. It's my words. Let them hold me accountable. This fool has been there before. When people leave office, I watched the interview Obama and other former leaders. They said if you had a second chance to go back, what did you things were your mistake that you were correct. This man has been there before. If he had a second chance to come back, he should have said, when I was there before, I did not do this, I did not do this, I did not do that. This second opportunity that I have, I'm going to make that change. I should give him 1 more year to do what? Has he been finance minister? Has he been foreign minister? Why does he need 1 year? He been there before. If there's somebody fresh and new that had never been there, I will give them benefit of doubt. Not that fool, not
Thank
that
you.
corrupt man.
Thank you. And Pastor Sylvia, I know you're trying to be tough, but I don't want you to be insulting.
Okay,
the
I'm sorry
Minister.
for the use of
Yeah,
language because I'm worked up. Why would we be giving these people passes?
That is not proper. So
why would we be giving these people passes?
Yeah,
People
thank you
who
for
were
taking
in the
it.
office before.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for
He's
taking
not a
it.
newcomer.
Thank you. Gentlemen, time is fast spent. We passed our 2 hours mark. And so we will be calling for your closing argument here. And it's good that we are ready on Gafwan. That will showcase the whole debate we've been having, because we want our institution to be effective. We want the heads of the institution to be competent, to be effective, for them to be able to move the needle. We are in an economic crisis. My greatest disappointment with Gafwan was given the opportunity, from what I read, to speak on austerity measure. The government announced that they will come up with an austerity measure because few millions have been taken away from us by the Americans. The men did not articulate any solid austerity measures. We just reciting just about anything. Anybody like me will recite that, well, let's cut down on the strikeout, let's cut down on travel. I mean, what is that? What is the plan concerning that? How long should it take an experienced man who served as finance minister, second time, work at African Development Bank, served in so many capacities, as somebody who was budget director? How long will it take this man? Somebody like that should have measures to be taken when it comes to austerity, when austerity measure is needed in his head, and communicate those things immediately. We don't have it anywhere written for us to see. That is a disappointment. What time is he waiting for?
No,
you have an emergency and you have no emergency plan, and you know you are working in a rescue government. You came to rescue the rescuers, and you yourself not asking for rescue. We need to rescue Gafwan here. But that is just a case study. Gentlemen, let me get your closing argument yet. Let's start with you, Evan Morris. You are losing the debate here with your Gafwan stuff. Let's go. What's your closing argument?
All right, thank you. Look, let's learn to appreciate some of our best and brightest. Let's learn to appreciate some of the best people that our nation produces. Look, the African Development Bank did not recruit Gafwan because he's a fool. They didn't recruit him and made him, head of a big country like Uganda, who has budget almost 10 times that of ours. So they didn't put him in such an important spot because he's a fool and he doesn't know what he's doing. They believe in his ability. They put the structure around him to succeed, and he did a very good job in that position. Somebody like Amar Conan, we can criticize him all we want. The World Bank didn't recruit him because he was a fool. They knew that he was capable, and they knew that if he goes to the World Bank with his structure and his environment and the quality of people that he will have around him, he would thrive. And he went there and he did a very good job. So I'm telling you that we lack capacity. Everything the international community comes to our country to say you need capacity building. What does that mean? You need more qualified, more people with expertise who can work in these ministries to make them better. You have to have more capacity in order for somebody like a Gafwan to come and have a smooth ride and get things going, because everybody around him already knows what they're doing. He's only been there for less than a year. I have faith in his ability to turn things around. I'm not a fan of this unity party. You know me where I stand politically, but I'm telling you, he's one of the best and brightest that we have in our country when it comes to the economy. As a finance minister, I think he's going to perform a lot better than he has in the 6 months or so that he's been there. In the second term as finance minister. Let's not just criticize him simply because he hasn't performed miracle within 6 months. That's my point. But thank you for having me on.
Mr. Morris, thank you. Mr. Goodman, your closing argument.
Yeah, thank you, my brother Elvis. I'm sorry for beating on you and Mr. Gamfwan, but when you look at Gamfwan's job description, it says Minister of Development Planning and Finance. Development planning, that's his job. It's like being an architect. When you're urban planner, your job is to plan cities. You can't say everything I learned, I can't do it because I don't have enough people to hold the paper here and do that. And another correction, those jobs you were talking about, they were jobs that were politically connected. People recommended. Ellen Johnson certainly recommended these folks, and that was it. It was not because they were qualified to do anything. You are saying that they did a great job, but you didn't state one thing, one groundbreaking economic policy that was introduced to the African Development Bank that helped Uganda. Not one. You just said he did a great job. They did a great job. That's not how it works. So when you are appointing someone, you will not get that job. Now you talk about success. Let's look at Samuel Tuer, right? During the COVID period, everybody, the whole world came to a standstill. They came up with an economic system that everybody in the Republic of Liberia that were working with the government will not lose or pay for the entire time they were there. People stayed home and they got paid. Why? Because they wanted the economy to stay afloat. That is ingenious. That was a painstaking out of the United States. That is something that was taken out of the United States page, their playbook here. I received $265,000 from the government to keep all my employees working. Why? The
quantitative easing.
So we are talking about planning, economic development planning. This man
You're
has
speaking about Tuer cannot hold water. Say something better, my friend.
Tuer is one of the, when you talk about bright and best of our people, that man, and I'm giving you one success story. When COVID hit the world, Liberia would never shut down. The economy would never shut down. So that's what I'm talking about. But ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great time, Mr. C. I know I think Mr. Tuer took your girlfriend and you can't forgive him, but it's all right. That's what happens when you're up there with power. Thank you very much.
You debated well, but your ending was completely flawed. These guys that came up with a stimulus package for our people, they were giving rice, they were giving water, and then my big brother, I think, what's his name? Winston Tapper, at some point were heading it. They were bringing a World Food Program, and they gave World Food Program $10 million. $10 million to do what? To plan how the right to be distributed. They wasted that money. What happened? Some people in Monrovia, they didn't even get a grain of rice. And that's why you want to talk about, say, a genius? Do you not know the definition of genius?
You're talking about rice. We're not talking about rice. I'm talking about the economy.
I'm just giving you an example of a failure for someone you are calling a genius.
But we have 70,000 people that got a paycheck every month.
I will leave it with you. You debated well, you ended poorly, and I'm rating you right now. Mr. Ducle, your 1 minute closing, sir. I want you to be strong.
Well, talking about institutions, I think by now, Anthony, you know where we all stand, and you can see why we get to where we are. I mean, look, for me, I can say this time around, Ngafuan's performance has been dismal compared to his first tenure. Because, I mean, yes, there were some things that we can say we can consider as achievement. For example, the public financial management law that he championed, as well as the internal audit agency that he was a champion of while he was during his first tenure at the Ministry of Finance. I mean, there are some things that he did during his first tenure. Considering the overall financial situation, then we can say, yeah, it's considered a success. Beyond that, haven't been there before, and his second tenure has been a miserable failure, simply because he did not live up to expectations, and you cannot cut him a slack because this is not his first time there. He's been there before. He's very familiar with the environment, with the territory. He's from Liberia. Even at the African Development Bank, he still has a good working knowledge of the economy of Liberia. So, I mean, that's just not an excuse. He has not been up to task. I mean, plain and simple. So I mean, with the other institutions that we spoke about today, they are all still, they are not performing to expectation, and I don't think they will perform the expectation with the way we have the president and his ministers. It's just not what we've seen have given us an idea as to what the next 4 or 5 years is going to look like. So I'm deeply disappointed. I wish we were in a better place than where we are.
Thank you. Dad, your 1 minute closing argument, sir. Dad, are you muted? We don't.
Whoever watching the Lakers game, please mute yourself if you're watching the Lakers game. Now you Mr. Gary, I catch you.
Come on, Elvis.
That it seems to be your volume might be having a rough time. We're not getting you. You're not muted, but we're not getting you there. All right. While you make adjustment, I will go to Pastor Salih for his 1 minute closing argument.
Thank you, Mr. C. First of all, let me apologize to all my fellow panelists and our listening audience, wherever you may be listening to this show, and those that will listen to it after I know my emotion flared a little bit, because I care so much about the country. And at my age, at this level, to see our country still lagging, I mean, it's very frustrating. And then the people who are brought on board to help rescue the country, and then we're making excuses for them, for me, it's unfounded. It's completely ludicrous. And I will still end it with the soccer team. Every coach that is appointed, and I go back to Elvis, like you said, if you brought Messi and the team does not have the kind of players that won't do well, you know what coaches do? They scout all around the world for good players, and they bring them to the team to bolster the strength of the team. As a finance and economic development planning minister, when you come over, I graduated from Minnesota State University. I have a young Liberian there. His name is called Thomas Saab. He's doing great. He graduated. He's into finance, and he's right now he's an editor to banks. He travels all around North Dakota. He's doing things, and I know there are so many Thomas Saabs around the world that Gafwan can look around and say, you know what? I was here before. I have the opportunity to come back. I love this country. I want to turn it around. Let me go to Canada. Let me go to America. Let me go to Nigeria. Let me go to China. Let me see young minds that I can bring on my team that can help me to turn things around. And not just sit there and be signing foolish broker checks and then we say, oh, let's give him one more year. If he's a newcomer, I will give him all the benefit of the doubt. But if you've been finance minister, you work in good places, you've been a foreign minister, then you tell me I should give you more time, that is completely ludicrous. He doesn't want to do the job, or he doesn't know what he's doing. He should get out of the way. You either leave Father or you get out of the way. So that's where my emotion came from. Why should we give Gafwa more time? Is he just coming from college? That he doesn't know what to do, that we should give him time to learn? No, he's been there. He knows what to do. Go around the world, bring planners, bring other people. I'm into sustainable development. Look for other people that you can build a team around, because you want success, because you want to lift your country from where it is. And let's stop making these excuses. When people fail, the only way Gafwan and them will wake up and start burning their night candle to sit down and think critically is when we criticize them, not when we give them passes and say, oh, let's give them more time. That's not going to work. So if we don't hold their feet to the fire, they just sit down and be driving around having fun. That's all they're doing while their country is lagging. These people don't care. When you have the opportunity to that place, be ready, be up in arms to go and make the change that your country needs. Like Charles Soludo, the other people in other countries, so that we can praise you.
Thank you so very much. Let's try again.
I don't know who's hearing you, Anthony.
Yeah, Dad, go ahead. Your 1 minute closing argument, sir.
You gotta call his name to get his attention.
Yeah. Dr. Williams, can you hear me? Dr. Williams, can you hear me?
His internet might be having problem. Maybe
no, it's not internet. I think his speaker or volume might be connected to
now. Now he's muted.
Yeah. Dad, can you unmute and give your closing argument?
Sometimes he should go out and come back in, and then it will refresh. Anthony, you're muted.
Yeah, Dad, can you hear me? Can you go for your closing, please? Yeah, he's not hearing me. Well, folks, on that note, this is how we will come to this debate. I enjoyed the debate. To our policymakers who have listened and those who will listen later, all we try to do is to hold you accountable to do better. Our country is in a difficult place. This is no time to learn. This is no time to be complacent. This is a time, for us to pick ourselves up, from our bootstraps. And we have bootstrap here. Let's do it. And this is no time to give excuses. No, this is not the time. This is the time to get a job done. And we need our leaders. We need agency heads. We need our representatives to be able to be up to the task in order for us to get out of this difficult place. We can do it if we are willing to do the heavy lifting. On that note, the song that is closing the broadcast says, "We are all Liberians," and that song is taking us home. So until we catch you again, bye-bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.